If you had driven past my house that Tuesday morning, you would have seen a 58-year-old woman in a faded blue bathrobe standing barefoot on the lawn, arguing with a dead rosebush while a squirrel yelled at her from the fence. The rosebush was losing its last petals. The squirrel was winning the fight over my bird feeder, and my phone was buzzing in my pocket like it had something more important to say than any of us. 3 years after my husband vanished, that was my life. Talking to plants, negotiating with wildlife, and ignoring calls from the bank. I pulled out my old iPhone, the screen spiderwebbed at one corner. The same number flashed again, the mortgage company. I declined the call and shoved the phone back into my robe. A "We buy houses in any condition" flyer lay on the grass, soggy at the edges. It might as well have read, "We buy the last thing you thought you could count on." "Not yet," I muttered, grinding it under my heel. That was when I heard the engine. Our New Jersey cul-de-sac was used to familiar noises: my neighbor's pickup, the teenager's whining Toyota, the mail truck with the squeaky brakes. This sound didn't belong to any of those. It was low and smooth, a confident growl that rolled up the street like it knew it was the most expensive thing on four wheels for 3 blocks. A black Mercedes SUV glided to the curb in front of my house and stopped. The windows were tinted too dark to see inside. For one stupid, traitorous second, my heart whispered, "It's him." Mark finally coming home in some dramatic movie-style return after 3 years of silence. Then the driver's window slid down, and I saw his sister. Olivia had always looked like someone had cut a woman out of a fashion magazine and pasted her into our family photos. Even now at 62, she wore her silver hair in a sleek twist, oversized sunglasses hiding half her face, a cream silk scarf tied perfectly at her throat. The leather seat behind her looked softer than my entire bed. She didn't smile. Her gaze skimmed over my bathrobe, my muddy feet, the squirrel now frozen on the fence behind me like a tiny, judgmental neighbor. "Grace," she said, "get in." 2 words. No hello, no how are you, no sorry my brother disappeared and left you with a pile of unpaid bills and a dying garden. I blinked. "Good morning to you too." Olivia tapped her manicured fingers on the steering wheel. "We don't have time. Put on some shoes and get in the car." I folded my arms over my robe. "Is this about Mark?" The name still tasted like metal, something I'd bitten down on too hard. A muscle jumped in her jaw. "Yes, it's about Mark, and it's about you. I'll explain on the way." The sensible part of my brain said absolutely not. For 3 years, no one could tell me where my husband went or why he walked out the door and never came back. The police shrugged. The bank just called more often. Our son built a busy life 2 states away and did his best not to say his father's name. And Olivia? She answered my messages with short texts, then stopped answering at all. Now she appeared in a luxury car like some cold fairy godmother and expected me to climb in without a single question. "I'm busy," I heard myself say. Fear will make your mouth grab any excuse. I gestured weakly at the yard. "I'm gardening." Right on cue, the squirrel attempted a heroic leap from the fence to the bird feeder, missed completely, and landed in the grass with a soft thud. It scrambled away as if it hoped no one had seen. Olivia's head turned. Her expression did not move. "Yes," she said dryly. "I can see you're very busy." A laugh slipped out of me, sharp and unexpected. It cracked the tight knot in my chest for the first time in days. I bent down, picked up the crushed flyer, and tossed it into the trash bin by the porch. Somewhere down the street, a lawnmower started up, ordinary and steady, like the day wasn't already bending in a new direction. "Give me 5 minutes," I said. 3, she answered. Inside, I moved on autopilot. Jeans, the one sweater without a stain, old walking shoes. I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. Lined face, tired eyes, hair pulled back in a drugstore clip. And for a second, I saw a woman who had quietly waited 3 years for a door to open that never did. Maybe this was a different door. I thought about the empty side of the bed, about the unanswered questions, about the number on the mortgage company's caller ID burned into my brain. I'd already survived the night he didn't come home. I wasn't sure what was left that could scare me more than that. I grabbed my bag, my battered notebook, and my cracked phone, and walked back out to the waiting Mercedes. Olivia didn't say anything when I opened the passenger door and climbed in. She just shifted the car into drive, sunglasses flashing as the SUV began to roll, my little house shrinking in the side mirror. Good, she said quietly, eyes on the road. Because once we leave this street, Grace, nothing in your life is going to look the same again. When the Mercedes slid into the underground parking garage beneath a glass tower in Manhattan, I felt my ribs tighten around my heart. I hadn't been to the city in years. Mark used to bring me here for our anniversary dinners. Now, the only things that greeted me were the cold concrete pillars and the echo of our tires as we rolled in. Olivia parked, killed the engine, and finally removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were the same gray-blue as Mark's, but harder. Sharper, as if someone had filed down the softness over the years. Before we go upstairs, she said, you need to understand something. Mark wasn't who you thought he was. I snorted before I could stop myself. You're 3 years late with that news. A ghost of a smile twitched at her mouth, more like a reflex than amusement, but it vanished quickly. She stepped out of the car, heels clicking sharply on the polished floor. I hurried after her, my old sneakers squeaking like they were apologizing for existing. In the elevator, I clutched the railing as the numbers climbed. My reflection in the mirrored walls looked small beside Olivia's posture-perfect frame. She carried her purse like it cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Knowing her, it probably did. The elevator chimed at the top floor. When the doors slid open, a wall of glass and sunrise-colored light swallowed me whole. I followed Olivia into a penthouse that looked like a magazine spread. White marble floors, a kitchen with more chrome than a Mercedes showroom, floor-to-ceiling windows framing Central Park like a living painting. I stopped breathing for a second. Whose place is this? I whispered. Olivia hesitated. Then, it's Mark's. My knees almost buckled. My husband, my missing, broke but not broke husband, had been living like royalty while I was clipping coupons and bargaining with grocery store loyalty apps. I drifted forward, fingers brushing the edge of a marble countertop. It was cool and perfect, nothing like the chipped laminate I had at home. Then I noticed a framed photograph on the console table. Mark, smiling easily, arm around a woman half my age wearing a Beverly Hills boutique dress that probably cost more than my car. Behind them was the logo of a luxury hotel I had only seen in movies. A cold, dry noise scraped up my throat. Well, I said, looks like he upgraded. Olivia winced. Grace. No, it's fine, I said, even though my insides were collapsing like wet paper towels. I'm sure their life together was very moisturized. My attempt at humor came out strangled, but it was either laugh or sit down and sob into the marble. Olivia opened a cabinet behind the bar and pulled out a small lockbox. Inside were envelopes, a ring box, and a keycard marked with a hotel logo. She placed them on the counter one by one, lining them up like evidence. These arrived at my office 2 weeks ago, she said. Courier dropped them off. No return address. I frowned. From Mark? That's what we need to find out. I opened the first envelope, half expecting a letter begging forgiveness or a confession explaining his disappearance. Instead, I found bank statements, international wire transfers, zeros that didn't feel real, company names I couldn't pronounce. The room tilted slightly. For years I thought I'd failed as a wife. Now it seemed I'd simply been left out of the second life my husband built without me. As I reached for the next envelope, my elbow accidentally tapped a crystal tumbler on the counter. It spun, wobbling dangerously. Oh no! I lunged. The tumbler skated across the marble like it was auditioning for the Winter Olympics. I grabbed it just before it crashed to the floor. Olivia stared at me, horrified, as if I'd almost murdered a Fabergé egg. I lifted the rescued glass. Don't worry. I'm trained. Years of chasing after toddlers. The corner of her mouth twitched again. Please try not to destroy anything. Everything here is worth more than your house. Wow, I said. Thank you for the warm welcome into my husband's secret palace. Her expression softened, unexpectedly. Grace, I didn't bring you here to hurt you, but you deserve to know the truth, and the truth is going to get uglier from here. I exhaled slowly, the air trembling in my lungs. Then let's get it over with. Olivia nodded, picked up the final envelope and handed it to me. It was heavier than the others, the flap sealed tightly. My fingers shook as I slid a nail under the edge. Before you open that, she said quietly, you need to understand, whatever's inside won't fix anything. It might only raise more questions. I looked at the envelope, then at the Manhattan skyline stretching beyond the glass. For 3 years, My life had been nothing but questions. Maybe it was time to start getting answers, no matter how painful they were. I tore the envelope open. I unfolded the letter and felt the paper tremble against my fingers. Mark's handwriting stared back at me, those familiar slanted strokes he used whenever he was rushing. The same handwriting on the birthday cards he used to slip under my coffee mug at breakfast. Seeing it again after 3 years was like hearing a ghost breathe behind me. Grace, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong. Don't trust anyone except Olivia. There are people who will come looking for answers, and they will go through you to get to me. I'm trying to protect you. Stay quiet. Stay away from everything. I'll fix this. My throat tightened. He hadn't even apologized. Not for leaving me alone with the bills, not for disappearing, not for letting me sit at our kitchen table night after night staring at the door like an abandoned dog. Instead, he'd written a farewell note disguised as a warning. I sank onto a leather stool at the kitchen island. The leather sighed beneath me as if even the furniture knew this conversation wouldn't end well. Olivia leaned an elbow on the counter. He sent that 2 weeks ago. Not 3 years. I froze. What? He's alive. Or at least he was recently enough to pay for a courier. My chest fluttered uncomfortably, half hope, half fury, and a pinch of nausea. So he's out there living some spy thriller life while I'm learning how to make soup for one? Olivia tilted her head. You're surprisingly calm. Oh, I'm not calm, I said. I'm a volcano wearing orthopedic shoes. She almost laughed. Almost. I stood and paced to the window. Central Park shimmered under soft morning light, joggers weaving between trees, tourists taking pictures. My life felt like it was happening inside a snow globe, tipped, shaken, and entirely out of my control. 3 years, I whispered. 3 years, he let me believe he was dead or kidnapped or something. Olivia didn't argue. She just handed me another envelope. Look at this. Inside were copies of withdrawals from accounts I never knew existed. Some had my name attached, my signature forged so well it made my stomach clench. One transaction was dated only 6 months ago. He used me, I said quietly. Yes, Olivia replied, and he used me too. Her voice cracked at the end, subtle but unmistakable. I'd never heard emotion from her, not even at her mother's funeral. To hear it now shook me more than the forged signatures. I rubbed my forehead. So what do we do? Call the police? Run away? Change our names and sell handmade candles in Vermont? She blinked. Is that an actual plan of yours? Only the candle part, I admitted. I've always liked lavender. A tiny, reluctant smile tugged at her mouth. Grace, this isn't a joke. People are involved, dangerous people. Then why bring me here? Why tell me anything? She hesitated before answering. Because you were married to him. And because whether you like it or not, you're part of this now. You're already in danger. My stomach dropped. I suddenly missed my dying rosebush and judgmental squirrel. Olivia opened the last item in the lockbox, a small USB drive, metallic silver, no label. This came with the letters. Someone wants us to see what's inside. Someone besides Mark? Possibly. Or someone working for him. I stared at the drive like it might sprout legs and run. Do we plug it into something? Isn't that how all horror movies start? Olivia crossed her arms. Do you have a better idea? Well, microwave it, I said. That would solve something. That would fry every electronic in this penthouse. That would also solve something. She sighed deeply, the kind of sigh someone uses when they're wondering how they got stuck working with a woman who talks to rose bushes. Finally, Olivia slid the USB across the counter toward me. Take it. There's someone who can help us. I raised an eyebrow. Who? A lawyer, someone discreet, someone very good. I frowned. Why not just bring him here? He doesn't know I'm bringing you into this, and he won't understand unless you tell him yourself. And what exactly am I supposed to tell him? Olivia looked at me, her expression tight with truth she hadn't said yet. That you may be the only person left who can expose what Mark has been doing. I swallowed hard. For the first time in years, I felt the ground under my feet start to move, not shifting me backward, but pushing me somewhere new. I didn't realize Olivia planned to take me straight to him until her Mercedes pulled up in front of a tall steel and glass building in Midtown. The kind of place where the windows looked expensive enough to have their own legal representation. You're going to meet the lawyer now? I asked. Olivia nodded once. He cleared an hour for us. An hour? I muttered. I can barely clear an hour just to find my reading glasses. She ignored me, which was her default setting. Inside the lobby, everything gleamed. White marble floors, chrome elevators, a security desk so polished I could see my anxiety reflecting in it. I followed Olivia toward a private elevator bank. She flashed a badge at the guard, who nodded her through. I wondered how many secrets she kept tucked into that designer purse. The elevator shot upward so fast my stomach tried to file a complaint. When the doors opened, we stepped into a hallway lined with black and white cityscape photographs. At the far end, a frosted glass door read, Daniel Pierce, Attorney at Law. The name sounded familiar somehow, but I didn't have time to place it before the door swung open. He stood there, tall, late 40s, dark hair slightly tousled as if he'd been running a hand through it all morning. A loosened tie, rolled-up sleeves, and a Mont Blanc pen clipped neatly in his pocket. He had that warm but tired look men get when they're very good at their job but wish they weren't working today. "Olivia," he said, nodding. Then his gaze shifted to me. "And you must be Grace." I hated that I immediately tugged at the hem of my sweater like a nervous teenager. "That obvious?" He smiled, not the polite kind people use in elevators, but a real one. "Olivia told me you'd be coming." My eyebrows shot up. "She didn't tell me that." "Yes," Olivia said briskly, "because if I had, you would have run home to talk to your rosebush." I gaped at her. "You told him about the rosebush? That's classified information." "It was wilting," she replied. "Hardly classified." Daniel cleared his throat, fighting a smile. "Why don't we sit?" His office overlooked Manhattan, an endless geometry of windows and light. I suddenly felt small, like someone had scooped me out of my life in New Jersey and dropped me into a sharper, louder version of reality. Daniel gestured to the table. "Olivia said you received documents recently. And a USB?" I placed the drive on the table like it was a cursed treasure. "I don't know what's on it, and honestly I'm scared to find out." He nodded gently. "You should be. Anyone in your position would be. Most people say things like that and make you feel worse." Somehow he made it sound like I wasn't a fool, just a woman blindsided by someone she trusted. He plugged the USB into his laptop. The screen lit up and a folder appeared instantly. "It isn't encrypted," he murmured. "That's unusual." Before he opened it, he looked at me. "Grace, whatever we find, I want you to remember this isn't your fault. None of this started with you." My eyes prickled. "Tell that to my mortgage company." Daniel chuckled softly, then clicked the folder. A series of spreadsheets filled the screen, transaction records, wire transfers, names of shell companies, lines of numbers stacked like falling dominoes. At the bottom was a document labeled Arsen Holdings, Partnership Agreement. My name was on it. My forged signature sat right beside Mark's real one. My breath hitched. He signed me into a company without me knowing? Daniel leaned closer, scanning the page. "Not just a company. This entity is tied to international accounts. If investigators think you knowingly participated." "I didn't," I blurted out. "I know," he said calmly, "but they don't." The room spun. I grabbed the edge of the table, grounding myself with the cool, polished wood beneath my palms. "And that's not the worst part," Daniel added quietly. He scrolled to the next page. A list of associated persons. The first name under Mark's? Olivia. She stiffened beside me. "That's impossible," she whispered. "I only signed tax documents, routine filings. He told me they were simple transfers." Daniel rubbed his forehead. "These aren't tax filings. These are authorizations for offshore movement of funds, in large amounts." I looked at her, feeling betrayal uncoil somewhere deep inside. "Did you know?" Her eyes shone not with guilt, but with something raw. "Grace, if I had known, I never would have brought you here." Silence stretched between us, thick as concrete. I exhaled slowly. "So what happens now?" Daniel closed the laptop, his expression hardening into something cold and precise. "Now we protect you, we gather everything we can, and we prepare for the possibility that Mark isn't hiding from danger, he's hiding from accountability." A single laugh escaped me. Dry, bitter. Well, he always did hate doing his taxes. Daniel pressed his lips together, trying not to smile. "I'm afraid this is worse than taxes." I nodded, though my legs felt like water. "Tell me what to do." Daniel looked at me, really looked, as if weighing the steel buried under years of loneliness. "You start by being brave," he said softly, "because you're going to need to be." Daniel insisted on driving us to the airport himself. which already told me two things. Whatever we were heading toward wasn't small. He didn't trust anyone else to keep me and Olivia safe. On the way, he explained that the trail of transactions pointed to one property in Florida, a coastal house purchased through one of Mark's shell companies. The same company where my forged signature had appeared. When he said the word Florida, Olivia muttered something under her breath that sounded suspiciously like a prayer. Or a threat. Hard to tell with her. The flight was booked last minute. Daniel sat between us, probably because he suspected Olivia and I might argue ourselves into turbulence. The plane hummed as it rose above New York, and I stared out the window, watching the skyline shrink into a silver line. "Are you okay?" Daniel asked quietly. "Define okay," I said. "If it means I haven't fainted or stolen the emergency exit raft yet, then yes, I'm doing incredible." He chuckled softly. "You're handling this better than most people would." "I'm 58, I said. "At this age, if I don't laugh, I'll start yelling, and once I start yelling, it'll take 3 counties to calm me down." He looked amused. Olivia looked like she wanted to request a seat change. As we flew south, Daniel pulled out a folder. "There's something I haven't shown you yet." "Oh great," I said. "It's never a birthday card in these situations, is it?" He handed over a printed image, a security camera shot. The timestamp showed 2 months ago. The location was a marina in Florida. And standing on the dock, looking healthy, well-fed, and not at all like a man fearing for his life, was Mark. Beside him was the same young woman from the Beverly Hills photo. She was holding a child's hand. My breath caught. "Is that a little boy?" Daniel said. "Around 5 or 6. We don't know who he belongs to." My stomach twisted. 3 years alone, and he'd been building a new life where palm trees swayed and no one nagged him about overdue bills. "He didn't even like Florida," I whispered. "He said the humidity made his hair weird." Olivia exhaled sharply. "Grace, he lied about everything else. I doubt honesty about humidity was his top priority." I almost laughed. Almost. But the ache in my chest was too heavy. When we landed, the air hit me like warm syrup, thick, sweet, and unfamiliar. Daniel rented a car, and the 3 of us drove along a coastal highway lined with pastel houses and palm trees that waved like cheerful strangers unaware our world was falling apart. The house tied to Mark's company sat behind a row of sea grapes. It was pretty in a quiet way. White shutters, sand-colored walls, a small porch swing. Peaceful enough to make my stomach knot harder. We parked down the street. Daniel handed me binoculars. "I don't know how to use these," I whispered. "Just hold them up," he said. I tried, but everything looked like a blurry watercolor. I fiddled with the focus until the house snapped into view, and there she was, the woman from the photo, walking out with the same little boy. She buckled him into a car seat in a bright blue Toyota. "Who is she?" I murmured. "We don't know yet," Daniel said. But Mark visited this house repeatedly. As I watched her, something absurd happened. A pelican, large and unapologetic, swooped down and landed directly on top of a mailbox behind Daniel. He yelped, stumbling back so fast he nearly tripped over his own briefcase. The bird stared at him like he was trespassing. Despite everything, fear, heartbreak, nausea, I let out a small, cracked laugh. Even Olivia hid a smile behind her hand. "Why does wildlife always attack me?" Daniel muttered. "Because it senses fear," I whispered. "I'm not afraid," he hissed. The pelican squawked loudly, proving him wrong. But the brief moment of humor dissolved quickly. Because a second car rolled up behind the Toyota. A man got out, tall, dark hair, shoulders I used to lean my head against. "Mark." My lungs forgot how to work. Olivia gripped my arm. "Grace, don't get out of the car." "I'm not," I whispered, though every nerve in my body felt like a pulled thread. We watched him help the boy with something in the back seat. Calm, casual. Like a man who'd simply gone grocery shopping, not vanished from an entire life. Daniel's voice was tight. "If he sees us, everything gets more dangerous." The boy reached up and hugged Mark. Mark ruffled his hair affectionately. My heart split cleanly down the center. Then Mark glanced around, and his eyes flicked toward our street. Daniel ducked. Olivia cursed softly. I froze. "He saw something," Daniel whispered. "Not us," I said. He looked at me. "Grace, we can't be sure." Daniel didn't relax until we'd driven 5 full blocks away from the house. Even then, he kept checking the rearview mirror the way people do in spy movies. Except in his case, it came with heavy breathing and a mild panic sweat. I sat in the back seat, staring at my trembling hands. Seeing Mark alive was one thing. Seeing him hug a child like a father, that was something else entirely. Something deep and ugly twisted in my stomach. Something that had been waiting 3 years to feel this exact kind of betrayal. Olivia finally spoke. Grace, I know this is painful. I pressed my forehead against the cool window. Painful as when you stub your toe on a coffee table. This is something past English vocabulary. Daniel let out a humorless exhale. We need a safe place to figure out our next step. Olivia nodded. There's a small cafe near the marina, quiet enough. Daniel shot her a look. Quiet enough for what? For someone to casually spy on us between sips of cappuccino? She raised an eyebrow. Do you have a better plan, Mr. Pelican Magnet? His mouth fell open. That bird came out of nowhere. It circled twice, Olivia replied dryly. I think it had a personal agenda. Despite the way my heart was still thudding unevenly, a small sound escaped me, half laugh, half choke. Grief and comedy had always been strange twins in my life. We pulled into a side street where a small coastal cafe sat wedged between a surf shop and a seafood stand. The sign read Sandy Cup Coffee in faded paint. The patio had mismatched chairs and a chalkboard menu someone had decorated with a crooked palm tree. This does not look discreet, Daniel muttered. No one commits crimes here, Olivia said. They sell seashell jewelry and novelty t-shirts. Inside, the air smelled like espresso and sunscreen. A teenager with a sunburn took our order while clearly trying to decide whether we were tourists, criminals, or a dysfunctional book club. We sat at a corner table. My iced coffee sweated faster than I did. Daniel opened his laptop, bringing up photos and documents again. Here's what we know. Mark is moving money through multiple shell companies. He's been in contact with someone down here. This woman might be a partner or something else. He hugged the boy like a father. I whispered. Olivia's expression tightened. Grace, we don't know the relationship. I know how a man holds his own child. Silence settled over the table like humidity. Thick, heavy, hard to breathe through. Daniel cleared his throat. Whether the boy is his or not, the bigger issue is this. Mark is using identities, yours and Olivia's, to mask financial crimes. And if authorities get to him before we do, he might try to shift blame in your direction. I rubbed my temples. So if he goes down, we might go with him? It's possible, Daniel said. Which is why we have to get ahead of this. My stomach dropped. The iced coffee suddenly tasted like defeat. Olivia leaned forward. Grace, listen to me. You won't go to prison. Not on my watch. The confidence in her voice surprised me. She spoke like a general preparing for battle, not the cold sister-in-law who used to judge my potato salad at family picnics. I took a deep breath. What do we do next? Daniel hesitated. There's someone else who's been monitoring Mark, another name connected to the transfers. If we reach him, we might get answers. Who is he? He slid a surveillance photo across the table. A man in a baseball cap, sunglasses, stepping into a rental car. I frowned. Is he dangerous? Daniel sighed. The kind of dangerous who arrives early, leaves late, and carries files instead of guns. So, IRS dangerous? Worse, Olivia said. Federal financial crimes. I shuddered. I'd honestly prefer the Pelican again. But before Daniel could explain more, the cafe door chimed. I looked up, and my heart kicked hard against my ribs. The woman from the Florida house, the one who'd buckled the boy into the car, walked inside. Her sunglasses slid down her nose as her gaze swept the cafe. And then her eyes landed on us, on me. She froze. A flicker of recognition crossed her face, and she whispered something that made my skin prickle. Oh my God. It's her. The woman stood frozen in the doorway, sunlight casting a sharp outline around her, as if even the Florida sun wanted to highlight this moment. Her sunglasses slipped lower on her nose as her eyes widened at the sight of me. Daniel's hand moved toward his laptop, nudging it shut. Olivia straightened in her seat like a queen preparing for war. The woman finally walked toward our table, slow, cautious, eyes darting between the three of us. I'm sorry, she said, her voice soft and unsure. I didn't mean to stare. Your Grace, aren't you? My pulse thudded painfully. Do I know you? She shook her head. No, but he showed me your picture. My breath caught on the word he. Daniel leaned forward carefully. Who showed you her picture? She hesitated, clutching her purse strap. Mark? The sound of his name hit me like a shove between the ribs. Olivia's tone sharpened. Why would he show you my sister-in-law's photo? The woman's cheeks reddened. She pulled out a chair, but didn't sit. Maybe I should introduce myself. I'm Lila. The name meant nothing to me, but the trembling in her voice, the apology in her eyes, it struck a chord I wasn't ready for. Daniel gestured gently. Please, sit. She did, folding her hands together in a white-knuckled grip. I didn't expect to see you here, she said to me. Mark said you lived up north and never traveled. My jaw tightened. Well, I do now. Turns out betrayal is excellent motivation for plane tickets. Daniel shot me a quick sideways smile, small approving, but stayed focused. What exactly is your involvement with Mark? He asked. Lila swallowed. I work as a bookkeeper. I was hired about 2 years ago by one of his companies, Arson Holdings. I handled payroll, invoices, basic stuff. At first, everything seemed normal. Normal, Olivia muttered, in the way a rattlesnake looks like an interesting rope. Lila blinked. Yes. I felt a tiny laugh bubble up despite myself. Lila continued. A few months in, Mark started coming to the office more, talking to me, asking personal questions, saying he trusted me. She paused, cheeks warming with shame. I shouldn't have believed him. The air around us tightened. Is the child his? I asked quietly. Her eyes widened. Oh no, absolutely not. That's my nephew. My sister works nights. I help take care of him. Mark adores kids, but he's not the father. Something inside me loosened, only a fraction, but it loosened. So what is he to you? I asked. She bit her lip. I thought he was lonely, and kind, and trying to rebuild his life. She lifted her gaze to mine. But he never said he was married. Not once. My biggest fear cracked open like an egg, and relief and sorrow spilled out together. This woman wasn't my enemy. She was another person Mark had lied to. Daniel leaned back slowly. Lila, why are you here? She exhaled shakily. Because Mark changed the last few weeks. He stopped coming by, stopped answering calls. Then one night he showed up at my apartment, pale, frantic. He said if anything happened to him, I should leave town. Why tell you that? Olivia asked, skeptical. He said someone was following him, and he said he made mistakes. Her voice dropped. Big ones. Daniel exchanged a quick glance with Olivia, then with me. Something dangerous was brewing beneath all this. Lila reached into her purse. I brought something. I wasn't going to give it to anyone, but I think you should see it. She placed a folded sheet of paper on the table. Daniel put on his reading glasses because apparently midlife danger requires clear vision, and opened it. It wasn't a letter. It was a printed flight itinerary. One way. For Mark. Departure tomorrow morning. Destination, the Cayman Islands. My stomach rolled. He's running. Daniel's jaw tightened. He's close enough to feel threatened, but far enough to think he can still escape. Lila looked at me, eyes full of guilt. Grace, he talked about you. He said his biggest regret was hurting you. That should have comforted me. It didn't, because the next words out of her mouth made my blood run cold. He also said, if you ever got involved, you'd be in danger. The cafe suddenly felt too bright, too loud, too exposed. Daniel lowered the paper, his voice steady but grim. Then we don't have much time. Daniel didn't wait for the waiter to bring the check. He simply stood, closed his laptop, and said in a voice that made my spine stiffen, we need to move. Now. Lila looked terrified. Did I do something wrong? No, Daniel said gently. But if Mark's running tomorrow, we need to act today. Olivia rose too, calm in the way hurricanes sometimes look calm from far away. Grace, stay close to us. Florida isn't as friendly as the postcards suggest. I noticed, I muttered. Even the pelicans are aggressive. We hurried out of the cafe. The sunlight hit us like a slap, bright and heavy. As we reached the car, Daniel paused, turning to Lila. You should go somewhere safe, he said. A friend's house, a hotel, someplace Mark doesn't know about. She shook her head. I want to help. I studied her face, young, scared, tangled in lies she never asked for. I recognized that look. I'd worn it for years. Helping doesn't mean putting yourself in danger, I told her softly. She blinked rapidly, the way people do when their bravery is bigger than their experience. I'll be careful. Daniel exhaled but didn't argue. Instead, he opened the back door for me and Olivia, then slid into the driver's seat. I buckled in, even though part of me wanted to curl into a ball and disappear. Seeing Mark alive had been a shock. Hearing he was planning to flee the country was another. But the idea that I might be in danger because of him, that was surreal. I wasn't built for crime. I was built for grocery shopping on Tuesdays and complaining about back pain. Daniel glanced at me through the mirror. Grace, I need you to stay focused. Things may move fast. Define fast, I said. Like brisk walking fast? Or running from the law fast? Closer to the second, he replied. Oh, good, I said. I wore my supportive shoes. Olivia snorted, which was probably the closest she'd ever come to laughing. We reached a narrow lot overlooking the marina, a hidden spot where Daniel said we could talk without being overheard. The smell of seawater mingled with engine fumes, and the sound of boat masts chimed like nervous bells. Daniel spread documents across the hood of the car. Here's the problem. If Mark leaves the country, the investigation will explode. The authorities will start pulling every signature, every connection, every account tied to his companies. Your names are all over those files. You mean Mark put us in the blast zone? I said. That's exactly what I mean. The waves slapped the dock in uneven rhythm. I stared at the papers, at my forged signature printed again and again like a cruel chorus. What if we stop him before he gets on the plane? I asked. Olivia crossed her arms. Do you plan to physically tackle him at the airport? Because as satisfying as that would be, I don't think your chiropractor would approve. I'm stronger than I look, I said defensively. Yes, Daniel agreed, but TSA doesn't care about emotional catharsis. Despite the fear clawing at my insides, I huffed a small laugh. Daniel tapped the itinerary. We need legal leverage. We can't confront him alone. But if we can document his presence here today, photographs, timestamps, witnesses, we can build a case proving he's been acting under false pretenses. Enough for authorities to detain him before he boards. So we gather evidence, I said. Yes, but discreetly. Olivia raised an eyebrow. Grace is capable of discreet. I, however, am allergic to blending in. I nodded. She once wore a cashmere coat to a backyard barbecue. That was an accident, Olivia said stiffly. It was July, I replied. Daniel held up a hand. Ladies, please, he turned to me. Grace, this is going to be difficult. Seeing Mark again, it brought everything back, but you need to remember something important. I swallowed. What? That man is not your husband anymore. He's a suspect running from responsibility, and right now the only person who can help expose him is you. A gust of wind swept across the marina, lifting my hair and scattering a few papers. Daniel and I rushed to catch them, but one sheet flew right toward the dock. Before anyone could react, a familiar pelican swooped down, snatched the paper, and flapped away triumphantly. Daniel groaned, face in his hands. Why does that bird hate me? It doesn't hate you, I said. It just has excellent comedic timing. Even Olivia cracked a smile, but the moment faded quickly. Because the truth was still sitting between us like a ticking clock. Tomorrow, Mark would try to disappear forever. And today, for the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't going to let him. Back in New York, the city felt sharper, louder, brighter, almost impatient with me. Or maybe I was the impatient one. After Florida, after seeing Mark alive, after learning he planned to fly to the Cayman Islands and let the rest of us take the fall, something in me had snapped cleanly into place. I wasn't running anymore. He was. Daniel met us outside the federal building near Foley Square, papers tucked under his arm, tie slightly crooked. He'd clearly been working since before sunrise. Olivia looked impeccable as always, though her eyes carried a new seriousness, like someone who finally understood the cost of loyalty. Grace, Daniel said as he approached, today matters. Whatever happens inside, keep calm. I'm calm, I said. I only cried once in the cab. Once? He asked, gently skeptical. Well, I admitted, once per bridge we crossed. Olivia sighed. So 3 times. 4, I muttered. Brooklyn Bridge doesn't count emotionally. Daniel's smile tugged at his mouth, even though this wasn't a smiling sort of day. Inside, we sat across from a pair of federal agents, one stern, one trying not to be stern, and failing. Daniel introduced us, laid out the evidence, forged signatures, shell companies, the flight itinerary, the Florida surveillance. I watched their eyes sharpen, flickering with interest whenever my name appeared in documents I'd never seen. So you're saying, the sterner one said, your husband used your identity without your knowledge? Yes, I answered. And not to do something fun like buy me a beach house. The less stern agent snorted before covering it with a cough. His partner glared at him. Daniel leaned forward. You have reason to detain Mark Henley before he flees the country. My client is prepared to cooperate fully and provide testimony. The stern agent tapped his pen thoughtfully. Mrs. Henley, do you understand that once you give a formal statement, you may be called to testify? Possibly against your husband? I swallowed. The word husband felt like a mislabel now, like calling a rattlesnake a pet. Yes, I said, and I'm ready. Olivia looked at me, surprised but proud. Daniel didn't say anything, but his eyes softened just enough for me to feel it. After 2 hours of questions, thorough ones, repetitive ones, and a few that made me wish I'd brought emotional snacks, we finally stepped back outside. The cold air hit me with a strange relief, like waking from a nightmare only to realize you're still holding someone's hand. Daniel walked beside me. You did well. I feel like I just ran a marathon in heels made of regret. You were brave, he said, even when it shook you. I took a deep breath. So, what now? They'll act soon, he said. They have enough to flag him at airports. But we still need to prepare for his reaction. He may try to contact you, or blame you. Let him try, I said, surprising myself. For once, he can deal with the consequences. We reached the courthouse steps just as a brisk wind swept through. My hair whipped across my face, and I fought it in the least dignified manner possible. Daniel tried not to laugh but failed. I can't take you anywhere, he said. I'm aerodynamic, I replied proudly. Olivia rolled her eyes. Both of you need supervision. We walked toward the street, where yellow cabs streamed by in chaotic New York fashion. It was then I noticed something odd, moments of calm. Real calm. Not the numbness I'd lived in for 3 years. Not the fear of Florida. But a small, quiet certainty settling into my bones. For the first time in a long while, the future didn't feel like a locked door, or a threat. It felt like a hallway I could step into. As we waited for the crosswalk light, Daniel shifted closer. Grace, I know today was hard, but you're not alone in this. I know, I said softly. And when this is over, he continued, voice low, I hope you let yourself build something new, something that's yours. My breath caught, not from fear this time, but from something gentler. I might, I said, if life stops throwing pelicans at us. He laughed. No promises. The light changed. We crossed together. And even with the weight of court filings in my bag and the shadow of Mark hovering over tomorrow, I felt, just for a heartbeat, hope, warm, fragile, but real. The morning Mark was arrested, New York felt strangely quiet, as if the city itself were holding its breath. I stood beside Daniel on the courthouse steps, watching the black SUV pull to the curb. Agent stepped out, crisp and efficient, the way people move when they already know how the story ends. Mark didn't struggle. He didn't shout. He didn't even look confused. He just looked tired. Not the kind of tired you get from a bad night's sleep, but the kind that grows from years of lies stacked like heavy books on a weak shelf. When his eyes found mine, something flickered. Shock, maybe. Or recognition that the woman he'd underestimated had stopped standing still. Grace, he said softly. But I didn't answer. I didn't owe him that. Olivia stood on my other side, spine straight, jaw steady. I felt her hand graze my elbow, not a gesture of affection exactly, but one of solidarity. The kind warriors give each other before walking into the fire. Daniel stayed just behind me, a quiet anchor. An agent read Mark his rights. The metallic click of handcuffs echoed against the stone buildings. For a moment, the sound felt like closure. But closure, I was learning, wasn't a single sound or moment. It was a series of small, necessary breaths. As they guided Mark into the SUV, his gaze clung to me. I was trying to protect us, he said. I finally spoke. You weren't protecting me, Mark. You were hiding behind me. The agent closed the door, cutting off whatever reply he might have had. And just like that, the man who had derailed 3 years of my life was driven away, replaced by the hum of traffic and a gust of cold wind that tugged at my coat. A strange, trembling quiet filled me. Are you okay? Daniel asked. I nodded, though my throat felt tight. It's strange. I thought I'd feel angry, or vindicated, or something big. I let out a breath. But I mostly feel done. Olivia exhaled shakily. Good, then we can all stop waiting for him to fix what he broke. Daniel offered me a small smile. You did more than survive him, Grace. You dismantled the ceiling he built over your life. That, I said, was unintentionally poetic. It happens sometimes, he replied, usually after 3 cups of coffee. We walked down the steps together. A reporter shouted questions, but Daniel gently steered me away before I could answer anything foolish like, Ask the pelican, it knows more than I do. As we crossed the plaza, something warm and unexpected fluttered in my chest. Not relief exactly, but space. Space where fear used to live. Space where my voice finally had room to breathe. Daniel walked beside me, hands in his coat pockets, tie slightly crooked from the long morning. You know, he said, I've worked with a lot of people in situations like this. Most of them collapse halfway. Are you calling me stubborn? I asked. I'm calling you strong, he corrected. Stubborn is just a bonus. That earned him a sideways look. You're unusually charming when someone else is in handcuffs, he laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. We reached the street. Yellow cabs sped by, and a food cart vendor shouted about hot pretzels. The world was moving again. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could move with it. We stopped at the corner, waiting for the light. Grace, Daniel said, voice lower now, when this is truly over, the trials, the paperwork, all of it, you deserve something better than what you've endured. I knew what he meant. The warmth in his eyes made it impossible to misunderstand. I don't know what comes next, I admitted. You don't have to, he said gently. Just let yourself consider it. The crosswalk light blinked on, and we stepped off the curb. A gust of wind pushed against us, sending my hair flying into my face like an overeager curtain. Daniel reached out, brushing it aside before I could swat at it. You really do need supervision, he said softly. I smiled, really smiled for the first time in a long while. Maybe, I said, but at least I'm done supervising a grown man who refused to grow. Daniel laughed, full and warm, and the sound didn't feel like a temporary comfort. It felt like the beginning of something quieter, something steadier. Something mine. They say healing arrives quietly, never with trumpets, rarely with fireworks. It slips into your life in small, almost invisible ways. A morning that doesn't feel heavy. A night you fall asleep without rehearsing old conversations. A mirror that finally reflects someone you recognize again. For me, healing began on a Tuesday. The trial had ended, Mark was sentenced, the accounts were sorted, my name was cleared, and suddenly the world felt wide again, as if someone had opened all the windows in a house that had been shut too long. I moved into a small apartment near Central Park, a place with soft light, warm wooden floors, and a tiny balcony where I kept 3 potted plants. I joked that if they survived under my care, I'd start believing in miracles. Most mornings, I walked through the park with a cup of coffee, watching joggers weave past and dogs pull their owners toward adventure. For the first time in years, I felt like the city wasn't rushing ahead without me. I could keep my own pace now. I kept working part-time at the bookstore, arranging new releases and recommending novels to strangers. Some afternoons, I'd sit by the window reading Women Who Run with the Wolves or Meditations, not because I was trying to fix myself, but because it felt good to explore the quiet corners of my own thoughts again. And then there was Daniel. He never pushed, never hurried. He showed up with small things, coffee, a book he thought I'd like, a joke he knew would make me roll my eyes. He treated me not like someone broken, but like someone rebuilding, brick by careful brick. One evening, months after everything settled, we walked along the reservoir. The sky was turning gold, and the water mirrored it perfectly. He stopped, hands in his pockets, and looked at me with a kind of gentle certainty. You know, he said, life doesn't have to return to what it was. Sometimes it becomes something better. I felt my heart shift, not painfully this time, but like a door opening. I'm learning that, I said softly. We kept walking, side by side, our steps falling into an easy rhythm. The city hummed around us, not overwhelming, not distant, just alive, and for the first time in a long time, I felt alive with it. Not as someone's wife, not as someone's mistake, but as a woman with a future she could finally imagine, warm, steady, and entirely her own.